Good morning to you all. Thanks for being here. Some of you know this, some of you might not, but on Monday mornings here at church and on Thursday evenings, a group of folks gather together, some in my office and the other group up here at the front, and we do something really hard. It's actually quite hard to do. We sit together without saying anything. It's not a meeting. It's a time when we get together to try and be quiet. So that when we're quiet and we let our minds get quiet, we find that the presence of God becomes more alive to us. The more quiet the heart gets, then the presence of God seems to become more clear. So it's kind of a prayer group of sorts. Because when the presence of God becomes more real to us, we can say, or you could say, the kingdom of God has come within. Within me, within you. The kingdom of God within. When people know or sense the presence of God within, you can say, the kingdom of God has come to you. It's a present reality. It's within your heart right now. That's the kingdom within. That's the first of the kingdoms I wanted to mention. The kingdom of God that's within. When you feel you're in communion with a higher power, when you feel you have some unity or communion with God, with the transcendent, the kingdom of God has come and it's within. Now, let me see, about 2 weeks ago now, 10 days ago, I went to a funeral for a priest. His name is Philip Stevenson. And if you're new to St. Andrews, you've never heard of Philip. If you've been at St. Andrews for a long time, you knew Philip because he was the priest here for 25 years. Which is a long time. So 25 years of his life was spent pretty much right where I'm standing. And so when he died, lots of friends and family and associates from all over the diocese went to Comfort, Texas to remember his life and also to celebrate what in the Christian tradition we call the kingdom of God in heaven. Or you could say the kingdom above. You say that this form does not last forever, but the spirit within you does. And your spirit communes with God's spirit even after this body has died. You are given life in the kingdom above, the kingdom of heaven that is outside of time and space, that's eternal. So at Philip's funeral, we remembered stories and told tales and lies about him, and then we said, and we celebrate his life with God now. The kingdom of God that is above. But then there's a third way of speaking about life that's life in the kingdom. It's not the kingdom within. It's not the kingdom when the body is transformed. It's the kingdom of God on earth. As Jesus prayed in the Lord's Prayer that we have memorized for a long time, Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. This is where things get dicey. Preachers like myself, most of the time we like talking about kingdom number 1 and kingdom number 2. Because kingdom number 3 gets into meddling. Because it has to do with what would be the righteous and just way to live together. Not just as individuals in individual relationships, but in terms of how we live together in the larger community. Or you might call it politics. Or how do we live together as a society? So we like 1 and 2, but 3 gets a little sketchy. In the Old Testament reading today, they were just getting involved in a big way in kingdom number 3, the kingdom of God on earth. Israel is asking for their first king. They want to be like the other nations. So the prophet is asked, he said, prophet, anoint for us a king to rule over us, just like the other nations have kings. We don't just want to be a bunch of tribes, the 12 tribes of Israel. We want to have someone to go out and fight our wars for us as a country. Samuel said, that's a bad idea. So you know what's going to happen when you pick a king? The king, being of the kingly sort, is going to rule over you and oppress you. If you go back and look in the text, it says, you will be his slaves. He will take from you everything you hold dear. He will take your lands and give it to his courtiers. He will take your sons and put them in his army. He will take your daughters and make them bakers and perfumers and make them part of his court. He will take the best of your lands for himself. And it goes on and on and on. He will take from you. You will be oppressed. You thought you left Egypt under that Pharaoh who oppressed you? Well, now you're going to get another Pharaoh and you're begging for him. And he will rule over you. You will not be happy. In fact, one of the books we're reading in the book group we have on Sunday nights says, I think it says this, that on average, in that political system where there is a monarch, the monarch and the top 1 or 2% of his buddies and the people who rule with him, they own like 50% or more of the gross national product of the country. One person or 1%. You know, we worry about the United States. How much is the 1%? Or what do they own? Well, in those days, 1% owned 50%. They were the billionaires. Everybody else is poor. And Nathaniel warns them, says, you will not get the kingdom on earth when you get the king. You will just get more oppression. Because kings don't worry about people on the bottom. Kings just worry about themselves and their self-interest and the ruling class that rule with the king. There are a lot of different people on the bottom. Can we talk about that just for a moment? Who is on the bottom? Well, in those days, it would have been like most people. And history repeats itself, as you know. So who's on the bottom today? The same people who are on the bottom then. For instance, if you were a foreigner, not an Israelite, if you were a foreigner or an immigrant, you would be on the bottom. Nobody likes immigrants in general, and foreigners are not trusted. They're not one of us. Isn't it funny how every wave of immigration, the new wave, are the lowest people on the rung, and the immigrants who came right before them, they get to get mad at the new immigrants. So, during the 1800s, 1900s here in the United States, you had the Italian immigration, and the Polish immigration, and the German immigration. I mean, half of Texas was German, right? All these German beers, German names, everybody's German. But then, the ones who come off the boat last, they're the ones who get the most trouble. They're taking our jobs. They're taking our land. They don't speak the language. In the modern day, we think about Mexico and Central America. That's our immigration problem today, but we've had lots of immigration issues forever and ever. Because we don't like the new people coming in. And they're always on the bottom. I just went for donuts today. We used the donuts at the newcomers class, the orientation class. I went to Shipley's Donuts right on Bandera. And I decided to go into the donut shop because I know the woman who runs the donut shop is some sort of Asian descent. She doesn't speak the language very well. And I didn't want to talk to her over the microphone. I thought it would get messed up. So I went into the store. But she was sitting on a little stool reading a Cosmo magazine or something. And I asked her for donuts. Everybody working in the kitchen, they were not Native Americans. I don't mean American, I mean they were all immigrants. And they've been up since whatever morning time they got up to make donuts, and they do it every day. Life as an immigrant is pretty tough. Of course, who else is on the bottom? A lot of times children are on the bottom. They have no power. They're powerless. They have to depend on adults. Especially if you're an orphan or you're in the foster care system or your family is broken up, kids get the brunt of a lot of problems. Women are also on the bottom. Most of the time, for most of history, women get screwed. Isn't it amazing today that still women don't make the same amount of money as men? You think that can't be, right? This is like 2015. Still, women make less money than men in their jobs, and equal jobs, they get less money. It's like unbelievable. Not to mention, they do all the work in the house, and they're the ones who get the brunt of oppression whenever it comes in other countries. So women, children, foreigners, they're all on the bottom. Who else is on the bottom, you think? How about the people who get hit by those floods that came here in Texas a couple of weeks ago? Natural disasters. You can be on the bottom in a hurry. And I don't really make a pun there. A natural disaster makes everybody on the bottom really fast. And there are people who, when you've lost your house or you lost your property in a flood, some people like myself have insurance. If I lost my house, I'd get another one because I have homeowners insurance, flood insurance. But the people who are poor got no insurance. They might not even have health insurance. So if I got in a flood and I had to go to the doctor to get checked out for something, I'd call the doctor up. I say, hey, I need an appointment. Poor people, they got no doctors. They certainly don't have health insurance. You buy my health insurance, you know how much it costs? Mine costs roughly $10,000. Double that for a family would be $20,000. If you make $30,000 a year as a single person, you're not putting 10 grand into health insurance. You're on the bottom. So there's lots of people on the bottom. One thing the Bible is really clear about is if you get a king who's going to rule over you, in the Old Testament they said you're going to stay on the bottom. The king does not care about you. In the United States, we make our own leaders, right? We choose them, we vote them in. We have an election here for mayor coming up pretty soon. We have state elections not too long ago. We've got presidential ones coming up in 2016. We choose our leaders. We choose our kings. They're the ones who make policy for us, and we tell them what policy we would like. Because the kingdom of God is not just the kingdom within, not just the kingdom above, it's the kingdom on earth as well. In that kingdom of God on earth, kingdom number 3, God will judge us depending on how much we cared about the people on the bottom. People on the bottom, those are the ones who are close to God's heart. Because people on the bottom, everything is hard for them. Everything's hard. I got a new car about 2009. You know how many times I've been to the shop for my car? 0. Because it's a new car. It doesn't get broken very easily. People on the bottom, they have old cars. Their car loses a water pump or a hose. They ain't got no money to fix that, and they go scramble around. They get on the bus. They walk. Everything's hard. Transportation's hard. Medical care is hard. I know somebody who says, I was going to give my daughter rollerblades, but I decided not to because I'm sure she would break a wrist, and I can't afford to go to the emergency room. Rollerblades are hard. When I get in trouble, I hand out a piece of plastic. I said, here, fix this. My credit card. Because you guys, I'm not on the bottom. You know how much money I make? You can, because it's right there on the bulletin board. Just go look at the budget. It's on there every Sunday, every week, forever and ever. I make $70,000 a year. It's a lot of money. So I'm not on the bottom. But as we organize our society, as we choose our kings, no matter what party you're talking about, Republican, Democrat, Green Party, Third Party, God will judge us and our leaders about the kingdom of God here on earth as much as He will about the kingdom of God in your heart or the kingdom of God above. All three kingdoms are equally important to God. Here and now, not just eternity. Here and now in the real world, not just the world within. And God has a heart for justice for the people on the bottom. So no matter who we pick as our leaders, I hope they are people who care about the folks not at the top, not in the middle, but on the bottom. Because they are close to God's heart. And God knows how hard it is for them. So as we choose our kings, I hope, no matter what party they're from, that they care, inspire us, and challenge us to care for the people at the bottom. Choose your kings well. When the Israelites chose their king, they were just oppressed again. As we choose our kings and we make our policies, we remember that God is concerned about the kingdom of God on earth just as much as He cares about the kingdom of God in heaven or within. Remember the people at the bottom. God does.